All About Beer receives underwriting support from Athletic Brewing. They understand the importance of independent journalism in the beer space, and their support helps fund original work. Learn how you can affordably support journalists by visiting allaboutbeer.com/support.
Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Hall. And in a moment, you'll hear a panel discussion with some great brewers and publicans who talk about great beer pours, why they matter, and how to achieve them. It was recorded at Goodword Brewing's Little Beer Festival earlier this spring, and it's moderated by Don Tse. But first, we've been talking about this on the show for a while, and you hear Andy Crouch at the cold open of the shows. The way we're able to keep bringing original content to the beer industry and to curious beer drinkers is through your support. We've created an affordable underwriting program that is easy on your budget, helps you get visibility, and is an altruistic way to directly fund writers, photographers, and editors. Please visit allaboutbeer.com/support to learn more. When you're at the website, poke around a bit. You can read some of the recent articles, peruse the archives, which go back to our founding in 1979. You can tune into other podcasts like Brewer to Brewer, One Iconic Beer, and the All About Beer podcast. You won't be disappointed. Follow us on social media at All About Beer to keep up with everything else we have going on. We'll get into the show in just a moment, but first, let's check in with Barrel One Collective, the company behind several well-known beer brands, including Long Trail. I'm joined by Marley Thompson, the community director for the brewery. Marley, welcome. And it might be best to just start off by asking what Long Trail has been up to lately.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited for Long Trail this year. Spring is upon us. We're finally green, and we've got some new beers coming out this spring. We will be bringing back Hit the Trail, which was last brewed in 1995. So that will be available as a draft-only selection this coming spring. And some new spaces at the pub. We've got a great trailside space that really features how much green lawn we have and space to roam. Lawn games, family-friendly and dog-friendly. And then, our warehouse space inside we've converted to a really fun game room. So lots of really fun, exciting things happening.
I like that. I mean, obviously, given the name of the brewery and its longstanding reputation, we have National Trail Day, which is coming up, which I know is a big deal for the brewery. What are you all going to be doing for that?
National Trail Day is June 6th, Saturday. We have a National Trail Day celebration. We will be celebrating all day. We're working with some great partners, Vermont Mountain Bike Association, Vermont Hudson Trails, Killington Search and Rescue, among others. Will all be on site to help us celebrate the day and really drive home the importance of our magical trails here in Vermont.
What is the best Long Trail beer to have after hiking a trail, in your opinion?
Blackberry wheat or Vermont IPA. You cannot go wrong with either one of those.
I like that. All right. You'll be back at the bottom of the show to share more about Long Trail. But in the meantime, I'm going to encourage folks to visit longtrail.com. And I want to thank Barrel One for being a sponsor of this episode. And now this.
Hi, this is Tim Shasha from Berkeley Yeast. Our mission is to give brewers better tools that are affordable and easy to use. Our team has been developing Tropics yeast for nearly 10 years, and we just launched it in a dried format. This is a yeast strain with high thiol biotransformation activity, which means it's great for making tropical forward hazy IPAs. I'll tell you more about how it works later in the show, or you can check the show notes for our recent article called All About Thiols.
From side pull to beer engine, the perfect pour makes all the difference to how you enjoy a beer. The pub isn't just the place you drink the beer. Great pubs know that pouring a perfect pint is the final step in the beer making process. The right glass, clean and kept at the right temperature, combined with the right faucet and skilled hands, is the difference between a good beer and the perfect beer. To find out how great publicans ensure customers get a perfect pour on this special episode of Drink Beer, Think Beer, which was recorded at the Little Beer Festivals this spring with special guest host, arguably the greatest broadcaster since Larry King, Don Tse. Don wrote that line. He's joined by Neil Callahan from the Brick Store Pub, Nico Tonks, the brewer behind Double Elbow Beer, Ken Carell of Human Robot, and Magda Hapova of Polt in the Czech Republic. Caller, you're on the air. Here's their conversation.
So this first educational session today. We're going to talk about the importance of the perfect pour. And we'll go down the table and just introduce yourself briefly in terms of name and brewery, what you do, and what does the perfect pour mean to you? What is that phrase mean?
Man, that's a great question. My name is Nico Tonks. I run Double Elbow Beer, which is a brand that happens out of a brewery called Little Thistle in Rochester, Minnesota. And I think the perfect pour for me is like, it's appropriate to time and place. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is no one perfect pour. So sometimes a frosty shaker pint might be exactly what you want, but it's all about vibes, maybe.
Okay, Magda.
Yeah, I'm Magda. I work at Pult. That's a beer bar in Prague as a tapster, and perfect pour. That's actually everything what's matter when it's about pouring a beer in Czech Republic. So that's all the standards we're standing behind and trying to improve and learn people actually all over the world.
Neil.
I'm Neil Callahan. I'm the beer director at Brickstore Pub in Decatur, Georgia. To me, the perfect pour is getting ourselves out of the way. The perfect pour is basically not being any sort of filter or any sort of infringement or color to the beer between what the brewer is intending and what the person drinking the beer is. It's basically for us as tapsters or as bartenders or anything like that to be invisible. I don't want to affect anything between the brewer and the person enjoying the beer.
Ken.
The perfect pour for me, the lady 2 people to the right of me came to our brewery 4 years ago, maybe? 2 years ago? That's all?
Yeah.
Oh. And taught my team the ins and outs of the Lucre faucet. So my perfect pour for myself is a schnit. As soon as I saw Magda yesterday behind the bar, I was like, schnit me, please. But that's just for me. And in our world, the perfect pour depends on the beer we're pouring. And we can talk about that a little bit later, kind of glassware, tap used, etc. But often, whether it's Czech Tan, which I'm drinking, or Hams, it's cold and ready to drink.
How much is it consumer dependent? Somebody they get to choose, they want a snit or they want a Milko. Of course, Neil, at your bar, you have cask conditioned. If somebody wants it through a sparkler or not through a sparkler, how much is this subject to interpretation by the recipient of the beer as well? And maybe we'll just reverse the order here.
I mean, for us, I think it's about education. And for all the Czech pours, which we kind of build a program around, there are pictures of those pours on the menu, and that gives us an opportunity to describe them. We have our own spin on Lico with the milk tube. We have a trademark, by the way. Don't you motherfuckers try to steal it out there. And if so, we're going to give you a cartoon cease and desist. But some of it is staying within the foundations of that tradition, but also having a little fun with it.
Neil?
At the end of the day, we're in the hospitality industry, so we are here to give the guests what they're asking for. At the same time, the message that we give to the guests is this is how the brewer intended the beer to be consumed. So whether it's Allagash White, we don't serve citrus with an Allagash White. Well, I'll give you the orange. I'm not putting the orange in the beer for you. This is not how the brewer intended the beer to be enjoyed. Same thing with sparklers. Same thing with traditional Czech pours. Well, I don't want that much foam. Well, I'm going to give you this much foam because this is exactly how the brewer intends the beer to be enjoyed. What you do after that, you're paying for it. You can do what you want. But my responsibility is to give it to you the way the brewer intended.
Yeah, so in Czech Republic, like when it's about ordering beer, people are not ordering hladinka, the full pours. They're just ordering beer, and they know they will always get served the proper full pour.
Okay.
Our customers are pretty educated in this thing, so they know what's schnit. We also serve the milk pours, or we can do the beer without any foam. But these are like minorities in our pub.
And people have to specifically request that.
Yeah. When it's like, I want a small beer, we always said like, we're serving schnitz. We don't have a small glass. But if you want a small beer, we can do a different style of small pour, which is not looking like a schnit. It looks like a small full pour, but it's just in a big glass, like the half liter. But we are definitely trying to educate tourists who are coming to Pool, because you sometimes see they order a beer, they are served the proper check pour, they're looking at it like that's way too much foam on it. But it's all about, start to talking to them like, this is cool, this is the check one. Just don't be afraid of the foam, try that, and I'm pretty sure you will like it. And 99% of them loves that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the education part of it is big. So the brewery that I'm at, we run the full gamut of beer styles basically, and so we'll have, we have 2 beer engines, and we also have Lucre, and we have a few other kinds of faucets, and there'll be many different kinds of beer and different kinds of glassware. And so the biggest thing is like we offer what we offer, and you can get many different sizes. And we sell it basically by the ounce. And so the biggest complaint would be like, oh, there's too much foam. It's like, well, you paid for 16, you got 16. And everything above and beyond that is our chance to kind of show off the last step of the brewing process, right? So what Neil said is like, don't get in the way of what the brewer wants. I think that's amazing, especially if you have the intention to do what the brewer wants. So to me, the front of house side of it is like the last 5 or 10% of any beer. So putting it down in front of somebody in a way that shows off its best case scenario, basically, right? I think is the biggest thing for me.
This is a question, I guess, for the brewers. As a brewer, are you brewing the beer with the intention that it be poured a certain way? Do you think about, your carbonation level, or, whether you're using spunding valves or whatever, because this is a beer I want for a Lucre. And if I was pouring it through a standard faucet, I would actually do something different.
So, by the way, I realized I never introduced myself.
Oh.
I'm Ken Carell from Human Robot. I think back to when we first got Lucres. I had a beer bar at the time, Memphis Tap Room, and I poured one of our Franconian lagers on one of our Lucres. One of my partners, Jake, had come to me. He's like, "Oh, you can't do that. Did you talk to Andrew?" And Andrew's our brewer. I had a conversation with Andrew. I think that's the perfect beer for that. Conversely, our German Pils, Hauertal, which Neil is drinking right now, Andrew thinks should be poured in a little bit more of a direct style. And just because of the way it releases aromas and things that he doesn't want that beer on Lucre. He wants that on just like an OG tap, poured kind of hard. And, so we defer to what he wants in those situations.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you from start to finish, like I say, it's the finish line. It's that last 5 or 10% is the presentation. And so, yeah, we always think about that. Carb levels, how we're going to achieve that, how it ended up being served. That flows all the way back, basically to, a week after knockout or whatever it is. So, yeah, definitely part of it.
Magna and Neil, then, is there room for experimentation? Do you ever put an IPA through a Lucre or a Czech through a Nitro? I don't know. I'm being silly, but...
Well, in Pool, we are focusing mostly on lagers. We have 6 of them on tap, but then we have 3 specials. Mostly it's a sour and 2 bottom fermented specials, whatever it could be, like pale ale, IPA, West Coast IPA, doesn't matter. And everything is being poured through Lucre taps. I was working also in a brewery as a brewer and as a tapster. We had mostly around 10, 11 beers on tap, and everything was served in the same glass, same mug we use in Czech, and everything was served on the full pour, schnitt, milk pour, whatever you want. You have to try a milk pour out of a raspberry sour.
I want to come to your bar and have a
awesome.
Cantillon, a Milko Cantillon.
No, that's... We are serving a lot of beers also from cans, bottles. We have also a lot of Belgium Lambic style beers, Cantillon, or we have good Lambic focused breweries in Czech Republic. So these are obviously not being poured with a foam, but still, if we have a keg, it's out of the Lucre.
It is, okay. Neil?
The room for experimentation for us happens when we're not open, or happens when we're not dealing with a guest. So when we're training the staff on beer engines, for instance, we will try Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, which we have on usually 365 on a beer engine at the brick store, which is great. So when we're training the staff on what cask ale is all about, we'll try the beer from a can, we'll try it from a cask without a sparkler, we'll try it from the cask with a sparkler, and then we'll try a draft version. And it's that experimentation to me is not to find a new and exciting way to serve the beer. It's to demonstrate to the staff, this is why we do it this way. This is why the brewer wants it done this way. The brewer wants a sparkler.
Right is right.
Exactly. It's to illustrate this is the reason why, rather than, I don't know, this could be kind of fun. I'm more of I'm into orthodoxy when it comes to that stuff.
Go ahead.
I've got it. This is kind of fun. So in the old bar, we would do an event called Thirstoberfest. We'd run like 40 different beers. One year I got everything lined up, realized the only thing I had left was the nitro line and a 6-12 120. So, and most people are like, hey, I'm going to fuck the beer. I'll put it on the nitro line. Sam's an old friend. I texted Sam's like, what do you think? He's like, oh, it sounds interesting. It was fun. A lot of people got really banged up because they were flying down, but that was my, like, I'm stuck, but this is going to be fun kind of moment. Like, nitro line 120 all day, baby.
So, can you talk about how did the beer taste or smell different because of that? And then I'm going to ask the same question of Neil as you walk through. You know, you're saying it's orthodoxy, it's correct. Well, what does incorrect taste like?
Well, I think it was more subtle. 120 is a little bit in your face. So some of that hop characteristic, some of the other things is like mellowed out a little bit by that. And I think people were just by surprise. It felt a little bit light as it was going down. Went off the nitro line too. You know, it was fun. People got banged up. You know, it's always a good day when people get banged up.
You know, to me, incorrect when it comes specifically to cask ale. We're talking about, you know, removing that sparkler leaves a lot more of that CO2 in suspension.
Yep.
And that pushes forward a lot more bitterness. And to me, the joy of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale on a cask is allowing that Chico yeast to really sing. That re-fermentation in the vessel really, that the ester quality, this wonderful like big peach quality, really shines through from that Chico yeast. And when you have that additional CO2 in suspension, then it doesn't shine as much. The CO2 and the bitterness just get in the way of that yeast really singing.
So can I challenge you on that? Being a bit of a devil's advocate here. Of course, when I go to the store and buy a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, it's in a can. It's highly carbonated. What makes the cask version better or right or correct and through a sparkler?
It's
specifically.
To me, it's sort of the objective of this cask conditioning, again, is to allow that yeast to really shine through more. You know, if I want a canned version or I want a bottled version, I'm looking for a different experience than I am
it's almost
from
like a different beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good way to put it.
Well, and isn't draft pale ale just different from the beginning anyway?
It's a different ABV.
Yeah.
It's a different, slightly different recipe.
So that's one of my
right.
favorite things about that beer is like seeking it out on draft and being like, yes, it is different. It's fun, you know?
Yeah. Magda, you know, the Luker faucet and the traditional Czech pour is nothing new for you. I feel like it's new for us. You know, I feel like I didn't hear about a Milko pour until maybe 6 years ago, and now it's everywhere. And now people are even saying it's wrong if you don't do it through a Luker. Like, how did that happen in 6 years for us, whereas this is decades or maybe even centuries for you?
It's a long time in Czech for sure.
So we've been doing it wrong for a long time.
I wouldn't definitely say you're doing things wrong. Like whenever I'm traveling out of Czech Republic, a lot of people is asking actually a similar question. Like whenever I'm traveling, I'm never judging how they pour the beer over there. We are not in Czech Republic. I couldn't be upset about the way they serve the beer. I know I'm in USA, I'm in England. I would never get a full pour in England, but still, I can enjoy the beer. You just need to stop thinking about that. They're doing that wrong. No, they're doing that actually
they're
how
doing the best they can.
They used to be doing that for ages.
Right.
It's different in Czech Republic, but I'm pretty happy that it starts to be more and more common in here when I will be talking right now about the US. So when I was in here for the first time ever 2 years ago, I was specifically trying to choose breweries, mostly on the East Coast, who are serving the Czech pours, and I was nicely surprised that this is a good thing because I think it really fits any beer. I'm pretty sure you will enjoy a Schnitt of West Coast IPA in Czech Republic if it's done well. The foam is nothing to be afraid of. It's a good part of beer, and it gives like different taste level to any beer style you can pour out of that. So I'm pretty happy that you start to do it at least with the lagers. And who knows, maybe if we're gonna sit in here in 10 years, you'll start to use the Lucre faucets for any other styles in here too.
Yeah, cool. I don't know who to ask this question to, but does anybody know, the history of the Lucre faucet or of any other faucet? I mean, if you go back far enough, everything would have just been dispensed by gravity. So when does gas dispense come along, and then when do faucets come along? And then why does the Czech faucet become the Czech faucet, and the American standard faucet become the standard faucet, et cetera, et cetera? Does anybody know?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Me neither, to be honest.
Yeah?
Like, I'm working 7 years as a tapster, and I was straight starting at the Lucre faucet. So to be honest, I was never like digging into the history much.
Yeah.
So whenever I visit Lucre, I know they have some old style faucets over there. They were making decades before the one we actually, and you also know right now. But I think the function over there wasn't the same, like, the mechanism wasn't the same as right now. It was a side pull, but I'm pretty sure if I will attach the old one right now on a tap system back home, I wouldn't be able to pour the same way as we are pouring right now. So pretty sure that the foam wasn't creamy enough. It has certain bubbles in it, but how long they're kind of like making what we are using right now, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Cool. So, we all talked about educating the consumer. How much of this is an uphill battle? Is it, and what makes it worth it? And is there ever an end to this education? Like, I feel like I've been involved in craft beer for about 30 years. And, for the longest time, it was just like, yeah, it's supposed to be bitter, or yeah, it's supposed to be dark, or yeah. And now you're saying, yeah, it's supposed to be foamy. Yeah, like, does the consumer get tired of being educated, or is this fun for everybody?
I think it should be fun. I think whenever I've seen, you work with taproom employees and teach them a new way to pour beer, and when people get into it, typically the first time somebody really nails it, and you got really nice foam in there and it just looks beautiful, the person you're serving that beer to notices the difference. I used to do this at the brewery that I had before all the time, where I would just kind of step behind the bar and do like a 3-step sort of jiggle pour on our regular pills, and every time I did it, the people on the other side of the bar were like, whoa, what is that guy? So I think anything that's a point of differentiation where you can be excited about something and tell somebody a story about it, like, that's probably a part of why they came in the door in the first place. So I think it just adds to people's enjoyment, frankly. Some people don't care about it or actively don't want it to happen, but like, I think that's just a matter of like communicating to those people why it's cool,
Okay. Meg?
To be honest, me personally, I like to educate people about whenever it comes to the question about like why the beer has the foam. So I think it's a fun part of tapsters in Czech. Like, if you want.
Does anybody ever roll their eyes at you, like, just give me a beer?
I'm not starting to educate first and then serve the beer. It's always beer first.
Yeah.
And you don't need to educate all of them. Sometimes you see like, it's cool, we like that, let's have a beer. They drink it, they order another one. But sometimes you see the side eyes.
Yeah.
And then like, if I have a time for that, space for the educational, I just like try to ask like, you think is a good one, or is there a problem?
What happens when a
like,
camera member goes into your bar?
Who?
Somebody from camera.
I mean, of all people, they should be the most into it, I think.
No, but their way's right and everybody else is wrong.
Their way is right for their beer, right? I mean,
Neil.
Yeah, it's the education never stops, and I do think that's how we as an industry are going to continue to thrive and survive. We work really, really hard on presenting these beers in the correct way, in the correct glass, with the correct amount of foam. That authenticity is what brings people back. A lot of times we're serving a beer that you can get at 5 other bars in downtown Decatur, which is great, but the authenticity of serving it in the correct glassware with the correct amount of foam at the right temperature, that's what keeps people excited about beer. And also when they can learn from the bartender, from the server. Oh, it's Orval. This is what this beer is, and this is why it's served this way, and this is why it's unique. That's what people get excited about. Again, that authenticity of how this beer is being presented. I think we're all looking at the health of the industry, and we're all looking at how beer can continue to stay relevant. And to me, not having that level of authenticity. I hate to keep using that word. I don't want it to be tired, but an authentic Lucre pour, there's a story behind that, and that's what keeps people interested, as opposed to another hazy double IPA.
Ken?
I mean, for us, it comes down to, I think Neil said earlier, hospitality. And our way for hospitality is through education. We get a more engaged audience. And, we try and have fun with it. Hey, here's what we're doing. Magda, I'm always going to screw up. What's the pour where we can separate the dark beer and the light beer?
We call it, you can call it layered.
Layers, but what's the Riz?
In Czech, it's řezané.
Yeah, see, that's why I can't pronounce it. But something like that, if we'll pour it out, and then everybody across the bar are like, oh, what's that? I want one of those. And I think Nico touched on a point earlier that was really important. It's, to us, every beer that's put in front of someone, for lack of a better term, I'll call it's Instagrammable. It just looks perfect. If it's a Hallertau, it's got a little jiggle on top. If it's a Czech beer, the foam's right, and if it's a hazy beer, it's poured properly for that. I was interested to hear Magda. I would never go into Pult and order a still beer, but I remember doing research in the beginning, and it was like all the different Czech pours, and then the still pour, they called it like the English pour, because I guess the English will come in, and if you give them foam, they think you're ripping them off.
But actually, it's very fun. Like, if you want to educate someone, the least I can do at Pult is I will show you something. I do the 4 classic pours you can actually order in Czech and give it to the customer. Now you have to taste it and taste the difference. It's all Pilsner style beer. It's all the same beer, but it could taste 4 different ways. The milk pour, very sweet, very creamy, nicely refreshing. Then you have the English style poured beer, no foam, very sharp, but again, very refreshing. So it's fun to taste this is same beer, but I can imagine where to order which one.
And you were talking about messing around with styles earlier. That we, as a brewery, we do that all the time. So now what we do with hazy IPAs is when they come on, typically we'll put them on the beer engine for the first week or two, and then move them to the tap wall after that. And so that's a fun textural thing. But then even with the Lucre faucet, I myself have been really into doing the sort of Japanese style sharp pour. And that works great with a Lucre faucet. And that's another thing where some people will see it and be like, oh, cool. And it's a totally different drinking experience. So I think as a brewery, it is fun to sort of mess around, right? Because we are the brewers. And so intention, we can mess with our own beer all we want, So yeah.
How much is this, you mentioned Instagram. How much of the popularity of the perfect pour does social media actually help us in this case, where people want to post their Milko pour or their Schnitt or whatever? Is this actually a good use case of social media?
I absolutely think it is. And I think they're attracted to certain breweries because they see beers that are poured in a certain way. I want to go and I want to try that. That looks visually appetizing. I want to come in and have it. If I could just go back a second, because the one thing that was interesting to me about Lucre training is they'll pour a beer hard, and then they'll pour a nice creamy beer, and they'll hand you spoons, and they'll have you just drink the beer foam of those 2 different pours to enlighten you as to what Magna was talking about in terms of that kind of the sharpness to that creaminess of the proper pour.
More in a moment, but first, these messages.
Long Trail Brewing Company has been living that trail life for over 3 decades and continues to keep it fresh and celebrate the great outdoors. Best enjoyed with a cold beer at the end of the day. This year, Long Trail is upping its commitment to trails by dedicating $15,000 to Vermont Trail nonprofits as part of its Ales for Trails program. So one could say that drinking Long Trail beer is a form of community service, and we thank you for that. If you're in Vermont, come on by the pub and enjoy our idyllic campus on the river. If not, we hope you enjoy an ale on the trail wherever you are. Cheers.
Tim here again from Berkeley Yeast. My favorite part about Tropics in a dried format is that it makes it easy to use Tropics more like an ingredient than a yeast strain. It's a great tool for turning tropical flavors up or down. Tropics on its own makes big notes of passionfruit and grapefruit, which is great for a lot of recipes, but sometimes you want to dial that thiol character down. Easy. You can just co-pitch at different rates with your house strain. If you want to dial it up, especially if you're using a pretty aggressive hop bill, then just add Tropics Boost. It's pure precursors dissolved in water and ethanol. Go to berkeleyyeast.com to find out how to turn the thiol dial to exactly where you want it.
And now back to Don, the Canadian Larry King Tse, and his panel recorded live at the Little Beers Festival in Duluth, Georgia.
I do want to, for our listeners, just if anybody has not had foam out of a lucre is fundamentally different than foam out of a standard tap. We're using foam as if it's a singular term, but it's really not in the case of a lucre. I wanted to ask, we've been focusing on foam and faucets. What about glassware, coasters, clean glass, temperature? Because, of course, part of the check pour is that you have the proper temperature glass, frosted glass, God forbid, frosted glasses, opaque glass, no nicks, shaker pints. Thoughts? Open field here for you to say whatever you want.
Death to the shaker pint.
Yeah, shaker pints are the worst. But I sometimes I do think if it is 90 plus degrees out and I am drinking light beer, I do want a shaker pint that came out of a freezer. Like, I am not mad about that. I kind of love that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm more open minded. But we try to stock the bar. It's a logistical problem, right? Like, how many types of glassware can you have behind the bar? But we try to stock the glass that we think does the best for the beer. We don't always hit it, but we do our best.
Well, if talking about the temperature, like in general, we do care about to have the beer cold. Like, actually, one of the first merch we made in Pult was a T-shirt with "Cold Beer Matters" on it. Sort of, the big breweries in Czech had a statement that their beers taste the best at 7 degrees Celsius, which we would never disagree with. But if the serving temperature will be that high, we do a lot of measurement in all ambient and not only in Pult but also in local, Vakohuti, whatever. If the serving temperature would be that high, 7 degrees, you're finishing the beer at almost like 14, 15.
I agree, yeah.
That's not an enjoyment for you, the last sip. So we did a lot of measuring, a lot of testing, and then we said, okay, if we're gonna serve it maximum up to 3.5 degrees, you're finishing the beer at 8, which is still very, very close to what the brewery thinks is the best for the beer. So that's what we do. We want the customers to enjoy the beer since the start up to the last sip. But also you have to help the temperature with what we do take care of the glass, which is cold, wet, clean. We store it in a cold bath. It's always like maximum 7 degrees. From what I know, back in my place, it's always like 3 degrees, the water bath. So you don't want to make a temperature shock for the beer. So right. if you have a cold beer, it doesn't make sense to have a warm glass for that, because then it will, increase the temperature of the beer.
Does it go the other way too? Like, if you have a beer that's at 7 and a glass at 3, does it shock the beer?
That probably, I don't know, because we have both cold, but it's always better to have the glass chilled. Might be like a little bit less. I'm not saying that everywhere is 3 degrees. I just know like how our impressive cold bath at Pult works. Yeah. I wish sometimes it works less than it works actually. So it's sometimes like it's hard to be like 12 hours at shift using the glasses at 3 degrees. That's Do
you wear gloves?
No. But yeah, I think like give me 5 years and definitely my hands will not be fit enough, I guess. So it's always better to have it as close as possible. So if the glass will be 3 degrees and the beer 7, it's still pretty close. But talking about pouring into the glass, which is not storage in a cold bath, and you take it from a shelf, then there would be bigger difference in the temperature of the cold beer and the warm glass for sure.
Yeah, shocks the beer, shocks the gas out as well. And Neil?
I think this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the experimentation. When we're training our staff, we want them to have the answers to the questions when somebody says, why do you serve it in that glass? Or why can't I have this beer in that glass? And that sort of thing. So we do that training where I'm going to pour you an Orval in a shaker pint. And it hurts to do. My soul dies a little bit when we do it. But here you go. New staff member. Here's an Orval in a shaker pint. Here's an Orval in the correct glass.
A little of me just died.
I'm sorry to do that to you, Ken. And them seeing how different the beer tastes and how different the beer looks and how the foam collapses differently in a shaker pint and in a goblet. Now that staff member has the education and they have the firsthand experience to explain that to the guest when somebody says, why is that in that glass? So that's the time when we do the experimentation, but it is to illustrate why the glass is important and to illustrate why serving a beer at this temperature and at this temperature is important.
Ken, anything to add?
I'm going to go back a step because we talked about taps. One of the things that kind of we've been having fun with and trying to keep the audience engaged recently is we did a collab rice lager and we put a sharp tap on there so you go backwards and just like have a blast with that. We make an in-house dry Irish stout. It's like 3.5. It's the brewers make it for themselves, but that's now being poured on like a Murphy's tap, which is amazing. So we've been trying to go back if it's a beer that comes from a certain region. How do they pour it there? Why do they pour it there? And then one of our guys is a tap line cleaner, so he'll procure stuff along the way that we just kind of have a little fun with. We think that's important. And then, a German beer to us, a German Pilsner should be in differently than the Czech lager. So, and we're the ones that make that distinction. Once a year we make Berliner Weiss. That's in that little, little glass that's proper. Like I'm missing the name on it right now. But everything should have its proper way. And whatever the foundation of that beer, that style is, as much as possible, we want to reach back to that place in time and give them something similar to what that was. And all of those things I think can make it interesting too, because we're all about trying to keep people coming to our breweries for engagement. So if every beer is poured in the same glass, that's a little boring. But if different styles are poured differently, you're pouring them in different types, it's kind of fun and it gives you an opportunity to, again, let's go back to hospitality. It's one of the things I think that's lost in the brewery world. And I think the people that do it well, like Todd here, we're at Good Word today. It's beautiful. His staff is so engaged. They do everything so well. When you do it well, it just sets you apart.
Yeah, I'm going to get up on my soapbox because this is a hot button issue for me. Is that, a lot of restaurants are complaining about, how the delivery services take 24% or whatever, and how do we get people back into the restaurant, dining in the restaurant? Well, this is how you do it. Hospitality, setting yourself apart. Proper service, not just the beer, the food, everything's got to be spot on. People have choices. They can stay at home and watch Netflix, or they can come to your restaurant and have food, and it's not the food, it's the hospitality, it's everything. Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox.
If I could just say one thing.
Of course. You're an old guy like me. We get to
in
show
my
the
last
clouds.
2 years, and I go to a lot of bars, we're on the road a lot, there's a person at this table I've watched work. To watch her work is one of the most amazing and engaging things ever. And I'm talking about you, young lady. But to watch Magda work, she's so engaged with customers. She's so engaged with what she's doing. She's constantly looking at temperatures under the refrigerator. And me as a professional, at one point in my life, I was a maitre d' in a French restaurant, and I had to sit in the corner of anytime I went into a restaurant and not looking at anything. In my world now, I'm constantly trying to take, how are people doing what we're doing? And to watch her work was just, a credit to the industry. Quite honestly, I applaud you.
Thank you.
Everybody likes Magda. I think this is the universal.
She's a likable person, but she is so efficient. It's amazing. And if you go into Polt, it's one of the most beautiful bars I've been to in the world. And it's different from anything I would imagine going to Czech Republic. I would think it'd be more like Belgian and kind of like darker and old and wood, and it's not. It's steel and it's shiny, and it's just beautiful.
Thank you for that. See you next time, hopefully soon.
So I'm going to do a complete 180 on that. For the two brewers at the table. Of course, you package your beer. Actually, do you package your beer?
Yep.
Okay, so people can buy a can of beer and have it at home. How do you make sure that they, you can't control what they're doing, How do you make sure they're having the best possible experience, if not the perfect experience, the best possible experience?
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. I mean, there's all, I got a lot of, we could talk about Untapped forever and I don't want to, but there's just a lot of like pictures of like nasty little glass, like no foam, and somebody's like 3.5 stars, kind of sucks. And you're like, well, that none of that panned out. I mean, I think we try to do our best to package beer with the same intention that we would for draft. And so like nailing, carbonation volumes and trying to make sure that's all right. But I think like Ken's point about beer being Instagrammable, I think that there's I don't know. I don't love social media, but there is like I think there's a trickle down effect from that sometimes too, where if people see somebody pour a beer a special way and they think that's cool, and then they go to the brewery and they have that experience and then they buy that beer for themselves, at least some of those people are going to try to figure out how to recreate that at home. And I always get happy when I see a picture of somebody and there's like foam, above the rim. It's like, all right, cool. That this person at least is like giving it a shot, even if it is a shaker pint. So yeah, that's Wild West, and there's nothing you can do about that. But yeah, I think the more that we educate, whether it be online or in person at the bar, at the restaurant, at the tap room, the more likely people are trying to emulate that at home.
Ken?
I will start this with a correction. I am by no means a brewer. I'm more like Ronald McDonald, like I get out to do my thing. But that said, I'm one of the founders of the business, and from day one, we're not really a distro brand. So if you're going to have our beer, for the most part, you're going to have it in a can that somebody either muled to you or you picked up from us. And 9 times out of 10, I think people have seen the pours on TV. And just like Nico said, people are trying to emulate what we're doing in the brewery. They can't necessarily pour a Mliko. You can have a Polish Malve and pour it high, but pretty much every other pour, like at least how it looks at the end, you can do that. It's just about taking time. And I think most people these days, if they're posting a picture, it's important to them that it looks as good as possible, which then behooves us. But I can be honest with you, when you see like something on Untapped in like a dirty glass, I'm part of Dirty Glass Mafia, I see all those bubbles all over, you're like, what the fuck? Can you just take that down, please? Just take it down. And interestingly enough...
Do you actually ask them to take it down?
No.
Oh, okay.
That way lies madness. You can't. That's not good.
No. But you're going to open up your door to No, we try to do positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
But that's not someone I would engage with. If you're going to pour it that way and take a picture of it, we're not going to be friends.
Yeah, we start to try to educate the people also at home in Czech. We start at Pult to sell like a gift box, whereas our glassware, coasters, a small cleaning detergent and a sponge with instruction like,
nice.
If you want to enjoy your beer at home, you can try to do maximum to enjoy it the same way as in a pub. So there's like a cleaning kit for home, cleaning the glass, and then
that's beautiful.
I like that.
So Guinness does like the surge thing where you can buy the little device that goes in your can.
Yeah.
Does anybody in Czech do that to try to like emulate the right pour at home?
I think me and a lot of my friends, we have the surge at home, but actually I'm not using that when drinking back home. But when we open Pult, it's not only 9 beers on tap, but a lot of cans, bottles behind. So we try to figure out like how to serve these beers. Like if you as a customers see 9 beers on tap, is like, no, I'm not into any of them today. I would like to have something else. Then we have like a lot of options, but we are thinking about how to serve the beer which is packaged and give it to the customer as much closer to the tap one. So we figure out the way how to do it. You have the cold, clean, wet glass. You use a bit of foam from a tap, from a classic lager. You rinse the glass inside with the foam. You spit it into the drain, and then you, under 45 degrees, you pour the beer out of the can or bottle in it. It looks like actually you tapped it. There's like literally zero bubbles in the foam. It's very creamy. It looks like you really did this from a can, or you pour it out of a secret faucet somewhere around. Like, no, this is from a can or bottle.
Okay, so the lesson is at home, I always have to have a sacrificial can that I can rinse my glass with before I put my real beer in.
Yeah.
The sacrificial can. One of the things that was interesting to us is, I don't know how many know this, we opened 5 weeks before COVID. So probably 90% of our audience for the first year, maybe even a little more than that, never was able to step foot inside one of our tap rooms because we were open, we were closed, we were on a 50%. So most of our early education, most of our early sales came up from all package. You know, COVID was kind of good for us because we opened, you know, we were doing cans and crowers. COVID came. We all thought we were screwed. We literally put a window to the street. There were EIDL loans. We got a canning line, and it really kind of changed the focus of our business. Where we were this little like friends and family brewery. Now, you know, we had to put cans out into the world pretty fast. And it was something that actually worked for us. So that was also important for Instagram for us at that point because we would pour a beer and then we would sell those cans. And people wanted to emulate, as Nico said, they wanted to emulate that pour that they saw, as I would say, saw on TV. But, you know, that's the old man in me.
Okay, last question. We'll go down the table. We talked about perfect pour. I feel like we kind of emphasized, you know, check pour, but perfect pour is more than just check pour. You can have any beer poured perfectly anywhere in the world. What's that beer?
Yeah, I think for me right now, it would be the Japanese style, the 2-stage like liquid cooled sharp pour. That's the one that I do for myself the most.
Japan.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's where I would go right now.
Magda, do I even have to ask?
Yeah, I'm thinking, you know the answer. It's gonna be a Czech lager, but you talked about the sharp pour a lot. I guess I have to try that somewhere in here while being in the States. I don't literally have zero information. What's that?
I mean, basically, so when you poured, where you pour the no foam, like maximum carb, no foam?
Yeah, Choktan.
Yeah, so basically, imagine that, do that, and then
you top it up
get the wettest foam imaginable and displace any of the loose big bubble foam with tight bubble foam. So it's coldest, highest carb, plus the nice like velvety
like
foam.
Top it up with
yeah, exactly.
Okay, sounds interesting.
Neil.
The first thing that comes to mind is getting a Timothy Taylor landlord at White Locks in Leeds.
Damn it, that's the right answer.
Yeah,
it is the right answer, and I'm really sad. I was recently in the UK and I saw Timothy Taylor on hand pump. Of course, I had it. It was terrible.
Oh,
you have to get it at the right pub. Anyways, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I think that just illustrates everything we've been talking about for the last 45 minutes.
Yes.
It's, you know, that pour makes a difference.
Yeah.
But the pub itself is gorgeous. The beer itself is gorgeous, and those guys really know how to pour a wonderful pint. My second answer would be drinking a Hallertauer Pils out of a can next to Ken. That's a pretty good pour too.
I love you, my brother. Come here, baby. My perfect pour currently. So my old bar has been taken over by Colin McFadden and a team of people called Meeting House. Meeting House is pouring the creamiest, most beautiful pint of Guinness in the city of Philadelphia now, maybe in the country. I now have a daughter that's a brewer for Guinness, so I got a little side interest in that. But really, that's the perfect pour for me. In the yard, with a Guinness poured by Colin himself, just sitting back enjoying the world.
That's a good life.
Kenny, that's the point. Like, I really enjoyed 3 days in Dublin. A perfectly poured Guinness is something which I can enjoy the same way as a perfectly poured Czech lager.
Yeah.
I guess
I do think Guinness has really done a good job educating the world generally about the importance of a pour. Obviously, they're self-interested in their pour.
And they got the G thing.
Yeah, but I think people understand, it matters. So, love it. Thank you for your time. Does everybody share your social media if you want before we end the pod?
Just Double Elbow on Instagram. That's there's a website too.
Yeah, so Magda Hopova, double P.
Brickstore Pub. Come by. We'll pour you a pint. It'll be great.
Human Robot Beer on Instagram, or if you want some more interesting content, KenC4.20. But, don't let your kids watch it.
That's a very interesting content.
Interesting in quotation marks.
Oh, I have a good friend who travels often with me, and his granddaughter is now on Instagram. He's like, hey, can you keep me out of some of those puffin pictures? I was like, maybe.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
My thanks to King Don and his panel, and also to Todd DiMatteo and the entire staff of Goodward Brewing in Duluth, Georgia. Every year, All About Beer gets to go down to Little Beers and put on panels like this, and we are so grateful and so fortunate. If you'd like All About Beer to be a part of your festival and your panels, you can always reach me at johnhall@allaboutbeer.com. That's JOHNHOLL at allaboutbeer.com. Next week, it's another conversation from the festival. So in the meantime, make sure you join the This Week in Rauk Beer group on Facebook or follow at TW Rauk Beer on Instagram. You can upload your photos and join the conversation. You can support us by visiting allaboutbeer.com/support. And when you're at the website, you can check out the new content as well as the archives, and you can find links to follow All About Beer on social media. As promised, Marley Thompson, the community director at Long Trail Brewery, is here. The brewery's parent company, Barrel One Collective, is a sponsor of this episode. Marley, welcome back. You've got a new initiative, Ales for Trails. Tell us what that's all about.
It's really exciting. That is our way to thank those that are supporting the trails every day. They're advocating for the trails every day and maintaining the trails in all the seasons, so we can all get to enjoy them. And so we're working with 3 different partners: Vermont Mountain Bike Association, Vermont Hudson Trails, and Vermont Trails and Greenways Councils. And we're just really excited to help them continue to build and maintain all the wonderful trails we have here in Vermont.
I really like that. It's been a while since I've checked in with Long Trail, and I'm glad to hear everything that you're doing. What else are you excited about down the road for the brewery?
I'm excited for summertime. Summertime, we really shine. We are, we're not just in Vermont, but we are Riverside. We have this wonderful location. It is right on the river. You can bring your dogs, you can bring your family, you can hang out down in the river, which is it's such a special space. Trailgating space this summer is out on the lawn, so really encouraging people to come out after they've had a day on the trails, hang out, stretch your legs, feel the grass, and have a great beer or two. That's a really fun space. And then we've also have, we're very dog friendly, and we really lean into that. We have a dog stick library. So if you've been with your dog all day, either driving to Vermont or coming off of the trail, you can head down to the Riverside, and we have a dog stick library where your dog can choose a stick, go into the river, give it a few tosses, and, everybody can cool off and have a really great day.
See, if my dog listened to this podcast, we'd be plotting a course to Vermont right now.
As you should.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Marley. I'm excited to get back up. It is one of those really fun breweries to visit and to be there, and it's cool to hear of all of the forward momentum that the brand has. So
we're really excited. Yeah, and National Trails Day celebration on June 6th is going to be a really, really great day to showcase all of our spaces and all of our wonderful partners. So we're very excited for it.
Longtrail.com is where folks want to go to learn more about that and everything else that the brewery has going on. My thanks to Barrel One Collective for sponsoring this episode. Marley, thanks to you for taking the time to share what's going on with the brewery. And now this message.
Tim here again from Berkeley Yeast. Our Tropics yeast is based on a London ale strain, but we added a new gene to its genome that codes for a unique thiol-releasing enzyme. The enzyme converts the precursors in barley to free thiols that smell and taste like passionfruit and grapefruit. It's super clean. No off flavors like burnt rubber or other sulfurous notes, just tropical aromatics. You don't have to do anything unusual either, like mash hopping. Just pitch dry Tropics and supercharge your hazy IPA.
If you like smart audio content, a reminder, All About Beer has a separate podcast channel. Search and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Listen to shows like Brewer to Brewer, which is now a weekly show, the All About Beer podcast with, Don Tse and M. Souter, and One Iconic Beer with Jeff Allworth. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday. The BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. And as for this show, Mitch Weber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo, and I'm John Hall. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'll be back to drink beer and to think beer.